Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. What we're going to talk about today, I was just kind of thinking about it, is could we be in the biggest bubble ever? I was listening to Bill Holter. He made some very good points, and he could be right. He's actually one person that I think who may have changed my outlook on some of these things. Now, we still have the conditions for a commodity bull market. All of those things are intact. The thesis is still good. The ratios, all that stuff is good. But there is one thing that I think he may be right on that I'd like to really touch on. So I want to touch on a couple of things here before jumping into that more towards the end of the video. But this is the producer price index. This thing's been rocketing higher. We've been rocketing higher here, which means we have inflation that's coming. Inflation and deflation have nothing to do with technology. It is 100% based off of the design of the system of money and what the designs are that are run around the world at all these central banks. This is inflationary. Producer price index has been going up. There is no deflation in this chart, like long-term wise. There's no long-term deflation. We've had commodities all go up due to inflationary pressures. And inflation is based off of the credit in the system. And it's an expansion of credit. Deflation is the destruction of credit. Notice how nothing has to do with prices. Prices are a symptom of inflation. So those who talk about a technological boom with deflation don't know what inflation and deflation are. Prices are symptoms. And prices, you cannot manipulate prices to, well, the way they set it up is they put in a consumer price index. It's this right here. And it's gone basically straight up with two little blips. But this is not a measurement of inflation because you can have credit expansion in the system and have it not go into consumer prices. There's a bunch of ways that they hedonically adjust it, substitute it, shrink things down. There's all sorts of things to manipulate these numbers. So it looks like the inflation isn't as bad as it is. But looking at inflation, it's a credit expansion by the design of the system. The credit expands based off of the demand for credit. So if you have a destruction of credit, it's a deflationary bust. An increasing or expansion of credit is inflation. Notice how it has nothing to do with prices. The link to the housing starts or new homes being built is an expansion, and it impacts the pricing of assets. Now, here comes the bubble. The design of the system must always have inflation. Deflation destroys the system in its entirety. So we have these natural cycles that happen over time with the real estate cycle. It's boom and busts type movements, a credit expansion and a credit kind of deflation if we were to overbuild and have foreclosures in the system. That's a destruction of credit. And then the bust feeds on itself. You get destruction of credit through businesses and all these other things, and it destroys itself. We could print money, we could control it in a disinflationary period of a recovery phase of housing. We came up in 2018, we started going into an expansion phase of real estate. And what that means is that the housing starts, which I have behind me, let's say that the average is somewhere like in this range here, a little bit below this. So the average, if I can grab it, is somewhere, let's say like in this range about here. And let me make this a little bit different color here. I'll just make it kind of yellowish so it stands out. If this is the average, we went into right here in 2019 an expansion phase of real estate. And what that does is it expands the money supply, expands the credit. And remember, money is just credit, it's debt. And that expansion caused problems. The overnight repurchase agreements, it popped up. Oh, that's reverse. We want the repurchase overnight repo operate. Right. Overnight repurchase agreements. There we go. In 2019, September 17th, 2019, something happened where something happened where it started a problem started here, a crack in the system. Using the overnight repurchase agreements, Treasury securities purchased by the Federal Reserve in the temporary open market operations. Right there, the system had the first break. And they had all these billions of dollars that they needed to pump into the system in order for this to work. They also did QE to immediately bring down the interest rates. And looking at, and I'm going to pull up another chart here for you guys. And it's right, hopefully I can have it in this one. Oh, last one here. In 2018, I'm going to show you kind of how this all links together. We had this move right here in 2018, 2019, where we had a break in the system right here. And you could see it coming on up in that break there. That there broke the system. And the system needed to go on life support, so to speak. And that's where all that repurchase agreement and all this other stuff comes into play. The housing market is the condition that drove that movement. When interest rates came up, it hit a critical level and it broke something. Then they had to do the repo agreements. And guys, I don't know the whole background here, but Bill Holter, I've been doing a lot of listening to Bill Holter, and I think he's right. I can't find a hole in his logic. He's done a very good job, and I think he has a very good understanding of this stuff. And he's right, it broke, and C19 came right at that time, mysteriously came about. And what they did is they could print a bunch of money and paper it all over. And they immediately dropped rates really low. So by looking and piecing this all together, and the way that he described it, he said that the demand for credit was increasing, which exposed, because interest rates go up under those types of scenarios, it exposed a crack. And the conditions for that was the real estate market going into an expansionary phase of real estate, which is the demand for credit. It's a credit expansion. Now, we need to pump the system with low rates in order for the system to survive. I agree with that now. I don't think they can raise rates. It'll completely destroy the system. But here's the problem. You're going into an inflationary credit expansionary phase of real estate. So the way that they're going to have to play this game is they have to slow the movement of people and the spending of money and credit. They have to somehow slow the real estate market down. And I don't know how they're going to do that. And if the real estate market continues and they build homes just like the supply demand and just like every time in history has done, you're going to get credit expansion, which is inflation. And if you get inflation, they have no way of slowing the inflation down because they can't raise interest rates. They're stuck in the corner and they can't get out. So if we have massive inflation and they don't raise rates, then all of the pressure will build on the value of the dollar. Now, Bill was talking about the biggest bubble, and it includes every asset. And the reason he says that every asset is in a bubble isn't because of supply and demand. It isn't because of the dynamics of the market interacting with each other. He's saying that everything's in a bubble because of the underlying thing that backs everything in the market, which is credit. The actual things that we use to transact in the market, which is money. Money is debt, and debt is credit. And if the credit goes bad, if that gets wiped out, how do people transact in the system with no way of transacting in the system? But it will hit everything. So I know some people will automatically draw to the conclusion that, oh, crypto is going to be the thing that we use. But credit backs our energy supply. Credit backs all of these different things. The way that it runs is based off of credit and debt. But if you take that away, that all goes away as well. So what you're looking for is you're looking for something that doesn't have any counterparty or third-party risks, which is really the only thing is gold and silver, because it has sunk costs in the beginning and doesn't depend on anything else to retain its value. It's already got the energy sunk into it. It's already got the capital and the equipment was already used to take this out, and then all of the energy to refine it and get it and do all of those things. A crypto needs power, and a power is backed by credit. The electricity grid's backed by credit. Everything is backed by credit. And what he's saying is that the credit will get destroyed and collapse. And that the credit backing those things will cease to exist because those things are reliant on the credit and the expansion of the credit in order to produce or survive. It'd be the same thing like me. If the dollar went to zero, I would not go to work because I would get paid in nothing. That's the same thing that would apply to absolutely everything. And then you look at the house prices. Why are house prices as high as where they're at? Now, in the system, we're all interacting and using logic and using the system that we have. And if we're interacting with each other, we're going to use debt to buy these things. But there's your problem. We are using credit or debt to buy these things. And you very much need this credit and debt to expand in order for the system to survive. The problem is when the debt gets so large in the system, cracks start to develop. And you can't pay it back, because the debt will literally collapse on itself. So what they do is they're going to print as much money as possible to keep the system alive. They have to go into inflationary mode by design of the system, of where we are in the system's life cycle. So if they can't raise rates, because we saw in 2018 a problem, or 2019. 2018 it was coming up, and 2019 the problem came about, where it was the crack in the system, and we saw it. We're trying to piece this stuff together. And I think Bill did a very good job of piecing that together. And now we have to print like heck. There's no going back. So I think the system's in its end design. And we're seeing the premiums on physical metals go up because some people, I think, understand what's going on, but we're still early in this. Metals have no counterparty risk. They have no third-party risk. They have no credit tied to it if you own the physical. And if you own a mining company, the problem is that this is probably worldwide. And that's why worldwide inflation's going absolutely crazy everywhere, because of the debt in the system. So you could say this is a great reset. And it has to be reset by the design. because the design will ultimately fail when it gets to these outer extremes or limits. So I think Bill's right, and maybe I'll put a clip on of Bill Holter talking about it so you guys can hear it directly from his mouth. But I think he's right, and I think we have to hold a good physical metals position with monetary assets also in there. And I have good monetary, I have a large amount of silver, I have a good amount of gold, and a lot of platinum. And I don't know if platinum is necessarily a monetary metal. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to continue to accumulate it. But it's good to hold a bunch of gold in a monetary reset, I would think. Gold and silver. And that credit being destroyed and the credit backing everything is an important eye-opening thing even for myself. How long can this system last? I don't know. And I don't think anyone knows that. But I think we're getting closer and closer to that end game. Maybe within 5 years. I don't know. So something to think about. I just wanted to bring that to everyone and let you guys know kind of my thoughts on it. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.